Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to unpack a really harrowing case out of Liverpool.
Yeah, the murder of Ashley Dale back in August 2022.
Exactly. And the trial, the sentencing of the people responsible, it's quite a story.
It really is. And for this deep dive, we've pulled together quite a bit of information.
What are we looking at source-wise?
Well, we've got BBC News reports, particularly on the sentencing. There's a Sky News piece that really goes into the family's perspective, the tragedy for them.
Okay.
And then the Liverpool Echo covered an appeal attempt by one of the men convicted, plus a pretty detailed narrative from the Coffeehouse Crime Channel on YouTube.
Right, so a good mix. And our aim here, really, is to get under the skin of this case for you.
Understand what happened, the circumstances.
Yeah, the background, the rivalries.
Yeah,
It seems quite complex.
definitely. And the impact, obviously, on her family, the community.
And maybe what wider issues it sort of highlights.
And there's something quite extraordinary right from the start, isn't there? Something chilling.
The voice notes?
Exactly. Ashley Dale sent these voice notes to friends.
Just before she was killed.
Some of them, yeah. The last one just 30 minutes before.
Mm.
And she's basically narrating the events, her fears.
Wow.
It's unprecedented, really. And it became crucial evidence for the police.
Incredible. Okay, so let's start with Ashley herself. Tell us about her.
Well, Ashley Dale was 28. She had a good career, environmental health officer for Knowsley Council.
Since 2017, I think, and recently promoted, too.
That's right. Yeah, doing well. And by all accounts, just a really well-liked person.
People described her as very popular.
Yeah, and ambitious, bubbly, charismatic.
Yeah.
That came from colleagues, police, just, a bright young woman.
And she had passions outside of work, too, right? Festivals.
Huge festival fan,
Mm.
especially Glastonbury. Apparently she had been going since she was a teenager.
And that detail about Glastonbury, it becomes important later, doesn't it?
It does, unfortunately, yeah. It plays a part in how things escalated.
We also get a sense of her from her family's memories. Her dad talking about food.
Yeah, it was quite touching. You remember their meals, her love for steak, specific vegetables, roast potatoes, broccoli, peas, mushrooms. Those little details.
Cherished times, you can imagine.
Absolutely. And her grandma. She recalled Ashley's birth, one of the happiest days. Described her as pretty, happy, popular, clever, and funny.
Sounds like a lovely person. She had a dog, too.
Yeah, called Darla.
And, thinking about the future, maybe starting a family.
She was considering it, yeah. But the sources say she felt her relationship at the time wasn't quite right for that step. Shows some real maturity there.
But there's also this layer of incredible sadness already hanging over the family, isn't there?
There is. It's truly heartbreaking. Her younger brother, Lewis Dunn.
He was murdered, too.
Yeah, back in 2015. He was only 16. A case of mistaken identity.
God, that's awful. So the family had already been through this.
Exactly. And her dad mentioned Ashley suffered from PTSD after Lewis's murder. She carried that trauma.
Which just makes what happened next even more devastating, doesn't it?
Unimaginably so.
Okay, so let's shift focus a bit. The intended target that night wasn't Ashley, was it?
No, it seems the target was her boyfriend, Lee Harrison.
And the sources describe him as having, links to crime.
Yeah, ties to the criminal underworld is the phrase used. And this put him right in the middle of a feud.
A feud with someone called Neil Barry.
That's the one. It apparently started back in 2018.
What was the trigger?
A significant drug theft. About 40,000 pounds worth of cocaine stolen from Barry.
And Lee Harrison was involved, or his associates.
The theft was apparently orchestrated by a group called the Hillsiders, and yeah, Lee was associated with them.
Also bad blood there already. Serious criminal stuff setting the scene.
Definitely. A history of betrayal, rivalry.
Yeah.
You can see how it could simmer.
And in Glastonbury, that festival connection we mentioned, that's where it flares up again.
Precisely. June 2022. A friend of Neil Barry's, Sean Zeiss, gets assaulted at the festival.
By one of the Hillsiders. Lee's group.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And Barry's reaction was intense.
He threatened Lee Harrison.
Yeah, reportedly threatened to stab him right there at the festival. So that old feud just exploded again.
Right. Now, after Ashley was murdered, Lee Harrison's reaction, or lack of it, seems quite telling.
Yeah, the BBC report called him extraordinarily uncooperative with the police.
He didn't want to help.
Refused to give a statement initially, stayed silent in interviews, wouldn't identify anyone.
Changed his phone number, too.
Changed his number, and also seemed to distance himself from Ashley's family, which is, well, quite something at a time like that.
It really is. And didn't he go on holiday shortly after?
He did. went to Spain, which, again, raises questions for a lot of people.
Understandably. And the coffee house crime source mentioned he's still involved in crime.
Reportedly, yeah.
Still
Selling cocaine and heroin.
and made some kind of inappropriate Instagram post about Ashley.
Apparently so. Described as tone deaf. It paints a picture of someone, well, deeply embedded in that world.
Yeah, maybe detached from the consequences or maybe just terrified. It's hard to know.
It is. These situations are always complex, aren't they?
Yeah.
Especially with links to organized crime.
So let's talk about the night itself. August 21st, 2022, early hours.
Ashley's at home. Just her and her dog, Darla. Lee Harrison is out somewhere.
And then someone breaks in.
James Whittam,
Mm-hmm.
armed with a Scorpion submachine gun.
A submachine gun. That's military grade, isn't it?
Absolutely. The judge highlighted that. It fires incredibly fast, devastating weapon. Not something you expect in a suburban street.
He kicked the door in.
Kicked the front door down and just opened fire. Fired 15 bullets inside the house.
Jesus. And Ashley tried to run.
Yeah, she ran towards the back door, trying to get out into the yard.
But she was hit.
Hit in the abdomen. She died there, in her backyard.
Just horrific. And there was something else earlier that night. Her car.
Yes, Whittam and another man, Joseph Piers, they'd slashed her car tires earlier.
Why would they do that?
The prosecution argued it was probably to try and lure someone outside. Maybe the alarm would go off, someone comes out to check.
Makes them an easier target.
Oh.
Calculated.
Very calculated.
And the consequences for them. With him, the shooter.
James Whittam got life, minimum 43 years. He tried to claim he didn't mean to kill her, just wanted to shoot the place up as a warning.
The court didn't buy that.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Unequivocally rejected.
And Joseph Piers, the other man.
The getaway driver, he got life too, minimum 41 years. Described as a foot soldier.
Then there's Niall Barry, the one with the original feud.
Yeah, he was seen as the main organizer, the malign presence behind it all. He provided the gun, made the threat.
I got the longest sentence.
He did. Life with a minimum of 47 years.
And Sean Zeiss, the friend assaulted at Glastonbury.
Also heavily involved in the planning, the encouragement, apparently felt deeply humiliated by the festival incident. He got life, minimum 42 years.
So all four convicted of Ashley's murder.
Well, technically convicted of murder in Whittam's case, and the others found guilty on related charges that led to her deaths, but yes. And crucially, all four were also convicted of conspiracy to murder Lee Harrison.
The intended target.
Exactly. And conspiracy to possess that scorpion.
The judge really emphasized the weapon, didn't he? The shock in the community.
Understandably. A military weapon used like that.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
And the police are worried about these guns, the scorpions.
They are. The BBC reported they're trying to figure out how they're getting into the UK.
Because the same type was used in another killing.
Yeah, another fatal shooting in Liverpool just a few months later, December 2022, suggests maybe a batch of them arrived in the area.
A worrying development for everyone.
Definitely a major concern.
Okay, let's look at the investigation. How did they piece it all together? We mentioned the voice notes.
Absolutely crucial. They gave this chilling first-hand account of Ashley's fear, her anxiety.
And she was talking about the feud between Lee and the others.
Explicitly.
Yeah.
Detailing it like she was narrating the lead-up to her own murder.
Mm-hmm.
The lead detective called it unprecedented.
Just incredible. But it wasn't just the voice notes, was it?
No. Good old-fashioned police work, too. CCTV was vital.
What did that show?
It caught Whittam and Piers buying something beforehand, their car, a gray Hyundai, near Ashley's house.
And the attack itself?
Another camera actually recorded the attack happening. So you have Ashley's own words and then visual proof.
A powerful combination for the prosecution.
Overwhelming, really.
And the arrests followed fairly quickly.
Relatively, yeah. Whittam and Piers were picked up at a hotel in St. Helens.
And Barry and Zeiss?
Barry was found at a golf resort. Zeiss was also apprehended.
There was one other person on trial, though, wasn't there? Ian Fitzgibbon.
That's right. He was tried alongside them, but found not guilty of the conspiracy charges.
So the jury wasn't convinced of his involvement.
Exactly. Shows the evidence has to be specific to each person.
And you mentioned an appeal attempt.
Yeah, Sean Zeiss, the Liverpool Echo, reported back in April 25 that he's trying to appeal his conviction and sentence.
So it might not be completely over, legally speaking.
Potentially not. There's a hearing scheduled. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Right.
Now, the impact on Ashley's family, it's hard to even imagine.
It's devastating. Her mom, Julie Dale, she had to give up her career.
She was a midwife.
Yeah, worked incredibly hard to qualify, loved her job. had to stop because of the grief, the trauma.
And her victim impact statement
Yeah,
sounds like it was incredibly powerful.
it really was. Both BBC and Sky News reported on it.
Mm.
She talked about the effect on her other daughters, needing therapy, moving schools,
Just awful ripple effects.
and she spoke about Ashley dying alone in a cold, wet backyard. Just brutal honesty.
Did she address the killers in court?
She did,
Yeah.
directly. Called them monsters. Said she'd never forgive them. You could feel the raw pain, the anger.
Understandable. And Ashley's dad, Stephen Dunn, he spoke too.
He did, and he talked about the double tragedy, losing Lewis years before.
That history repeating itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He mentioned Ashley's PTSD after Lewis died, the darkness of that first Christmas without her. Just heartbreaking.
And finding out about Ashley's final messages, predicting something bad would happen. Imagine hearing that. Knowing your daughter knew she was in danger. Must have been horrific for them.
But the community rallied round. There's a memorial.
Yeah, a bench and a tree in Court Hay Park. A place to remember her. Shows how much she meant to people.
A small comfort, perhaps.
Perhaps a way to keep her memory alive.
So, looking at the bigger picture now, the judge commented on Lee Harrison's lack of cooperation.
Yeah, linked it directly to his involvement in gangs, that sort of code of silence.
And there was that disturbing link to another case, Olivia Pratt-Korbel.
Right. 2 of Ashley's killers were apparently named as potential suspects in Olivia's shooting, too.
Olivia was the 9-year-old girl.
That's right. Shot in her own home just a day after Ashley and only a couple of miles away. It highlights how interconnected this violence can be.
It really does. And it brings us back to those guns, the scorpions.
The police theory is that a consignment of these weapons arriving in the area might be behind this spike in fatal shootings, including Ashley's and Olivia's.
A terrifying thought. How are these military weapons getting onto the streets?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And one the police are desperately trying to answer.
Ashley's father had some strong words about it all, didn't he?
He did. Very powerful. He said he believes his children were victims of, well, I get this right, big egos running around the city with powerful guns, involved in petty feuds and killing innocent people.
A pretty damning indictment of that whole culture.
Absolutely. Coming from someone who's lost 2 children to it, it carries immense weight.
So wrapping this up, it's just a stark, terrible story, isn't it?
It really is. An innocent young woman, full of life, just caught in the crossfire of this drug feud.
And the consequences.
Yeah.
Devastating for her family, shaking the whole community.
Yeah. And I think, a key takeaway has to be the role of Ashley's own words.
Those voice notes.
Her fears, her narrative,
Yeah.
captured in her final hours, ultimately helping bring her killers to justice. It's haunting.
A testament to her foresight, in a chilling way.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it just throws into sharp relief the whole issue of gang violence, the ripple effects, and these incredibly dangerous weapons being available.
Yeah. Which leads to a final thought, maybe, for our listeners.
What?
Well, thinking about Ashley's messages, how she seemed to know something bad was coming. How often do we maybe ignore our own gut feeling?
That's interesting. Dismiss those little alarms.
Yeah. Could we learn something from paying closer attention, especially when things feel risky or there's conflict brewing?
It's a provocative thought,
Yeah.
and maybe on a bigger scale, too. What's the community's role?
In tackling the root causes, preventing this kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do we stop these feuds, these weapons, from destroying more lives like Ashley Dale's? Lots to think about there.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive.